The diner on Route 17 wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to find a miracle. It was small, creaky, and forever smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. Locals called it Marge's pit stop, though Marge herself had been dead for years. On that sticky August afternoon, the place was almost empty, except for a lone waitress struggling to keep up with her shift. Her name was Tasha Miller, a young black woman in her late 20s. Her curly hair was tied back in a messy bun, and sweat glistened on her forehead as she limped between tables. Each step seemed to stab pain into her right leg, but she kept moving, forcing a polite smile for every customer. She didn't have a choice. Tips were her only lifeline. Outside, the roar of engines broke through the diner's stillness. 5 motorcycles rolled up, chrome gleaming in the sun. The men who stepped off were intimidating. Leather vests, tattoos, thick beards, and boots that thudded like thunder when they entered. The patch on their backs read Iron Vulture's Immick. Every head in the diner turned. The cook froze mid-flip with a pancake. Tasha's fingers trembled as she held her order pad. She'd served rough crowds before, but bikers, that was a different story. "Afternoon, sweetheart," said the biggest of them, a mountain of a man with steel grey eyes and a scar across his jaw. His name patch read Reaper. "Got room for 5 hungry souls?" Tasha nodded nervously. "Of course, sir. Take any booth you like." They took the corner booth, their heavy laughter filling the room. Reaper watched her limp away, a frown creasing his face. He noticed the way she winced every few steps, the tightness in her jaw. Something wasn't right. When Tasha came back with menus, one of the younger bikers, Diesel, whispered, "Man, look at her leg. She's hurt bad." Reaper nodded. "Yeah, but she's trying to hide it." Tasha set down their coffees. "Y'all want the lunch special? It's meatloaf and mashed potatoes today." "Sounds good," Reaper said. "And bring one for yourself. On me." Tasha blinked. "Oh, I can't eat on shift, sir. But thank you. Call me Reaper," he said. "And you sure about that limp? Looks painful." Her hand froze mid-air. "It's nothing. Just twisted my ankle last week." But Reaper didn't buy it. He'd seen that look before, the kind that spoke of bruises, not sprains. When she turned to walk away, Diesel whispered, "Boss, I think somebody's been hitting her." Reaper's jaw tightened. "Yeah, I think you're right." Over the next 30 minutes they watched quietly. Every time Tasha moved, her limp grew worse. She flinched when a male customer raised his voice. And when the bell above the door jingled and a tall man in a baseball cap walked in, she froze like a deer in headlights. The man stomped up to the counter. "You're late again last night," he hissed. "You think I didn't notice?" Tasha lowered her eyes. I had to close the register, Daryl." Reaper's ears perked up. "Daryl." The man grabbed her wrist hard enough to make her wince. "Don't lie to me." The entire diner went silent. Reaper's crew exchanged glances, their muscles tensing. "Hey," Reaper called out, his voice calm but deep. "You got a problem with her?" Daryl turned, sneering. "Mind your business, old man. This ain't your concern." Reaper stood slowly, towering like a storm cloud. "When a man grabs a woman like that, it becomes my concern." Tasha shook her head frantically. "Please, don't. He's just upset." But Reaper ignored her plea. He took one slow step forward. Diesel and the others rose too, leather creaking, eyes locked on Daryl. Daryl released her arm and stepped back. "You don't know who you're messing with." Reaper smirked. "Neither do you." Daryl muttered something under his breath and stormed out of the diner, slamming the door behind him. The air felt charged, every patron holding their breath. Tasha stood frozen, her hand rubbing the red mark on her wrist. "You okay?" Reaper asked softly. She nodded, though her eyes glistened. "You shouldn't have done that. He'll be back." Reaper's expression darkened. "Then we'll be here when he does." Tasha looked at the 5 men before her, rough, tattooed, dangerous. And for the first time that day, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. When the open sign flickered off that night, Tasha's heart thudded like a drum. The diner was empty except for her and the clatter of dishes she was washing. Her shift was over, but she dreaded going home. Daryl would be waiting. He always was. She didn't hear the door open at first, but when the low hum of engines reached her ears, she froze. Turning, she saw the same 5 bikers from earlier that day, Reaper, Diesel, Tank, Ghost, and Patch. They filled the doorway, bringing the night with them. "Evening, sweetheart," Reaper said. "We figured you might need company." Tasha blinked in confusion. "You came back?" Reaper nodded. "We don't leave loose ends, especially when one's got a limp and bruises on her wrist." Her voice trembled. "You shouldn't get involved. Daryl, he's not just some guy, he's dangerous." Reaper's gaze hardened. "So are we." He gestured to a chair, and Tasha hesitated before sitting. The bikers took seats around her like a shield. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the fridge and the rain starting outside. Finally, she spoke. "I met Daryl 2 years ago," she whispered. "He was charming at first, said he'd help me pay rent. Then he started controlling everything, my phone, my shifts, even my friends. When I tried to leave last year, he broke my ankle." She looked down at her leg. "That's why I limp." Diesel swore under his breath. Tank clenched his fists. Ghost's jaw tightened like stone. "Why haven't you gone to the cops?" Reaper asked quietly. Tasha let out a bitter laugh. "I tried. He's got friends in the sheriff's office. They told me to work things out privately." Reaper exchanged looks with his crew. They all understood what that meant. Small towns protected their own, even if their own were monsters. "You got somewhere safe to go tonight?" Reaper asked. She shook her head. "No family nearby. My mom passed away last year. I live in a trailer out on Old Creek Road." With him, Reaper stood. "Not anymore." Before she could protest, Diesel said, "We got a place outside town. You can stay there till this is sorted. I can't just leave. If he finds out, he'll come after you." Reaper smiled faintly. "Let him try." Tasha looked between them. 5 men she'd met only hours ago, now offering her protection she hadn't dared hope for. Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Reaper's tone softened. "Because someone once did it for us." They waited until she clocked out and locked the diner. Then, under the heavy rain, they escorted her outside. Diesel handed her his jacket. Tank helped her onto the back of his bike, careful of her leg. The engines roared to life, echoing through the night like thunder. As they rode down the highway, Tasha clung to Tank's back, feeling for the first time in years like she was escaping. But when they reached the edge of town, headlights appeared in the rearview mirrors. A black pickup truck sped toward them, swerving recklessly. "Company!" Diesel shouted over the wind. Reaper glanced back, his eyes narrowed. "That him?" Tasha turned her head and saw Daryl's truck gaining fast. "Yes, that's him." The bikers accelerated, but Daryl's truck rammed the back tire of Ghost's bike, nearly knocking him over. Ghost regained balance, cursing. The rain made the road slick, the engines roaring louder than thunder. "Keep her safe," Reaper ordered. Tank veered off toward an old service road, leading Tasha away. Reaper and the others slowed, forming a wall between her and Daryl. The truck screeched to a halt in front of them. Daryl jumped out, face twisted in rage. "Where is she?" he shouted. Reaper dismounted his bike slowly, water streaming down his leather jacket. "You need to calm down, son. You don't tell me what to do," Daryl roared, pulling a crowbar from the truck bed. Diesel laughed darkly. "Wrong move." The moment Daryl swung, Reaper caught his arm mid-air. In one brutal twist, he disarmed him and tossed the crowbar into the mud. Daryl stumbled, shocked by the strength before him. Reaper's voice dropped low and cold. "You lay another hand on that girl, and you'll answer to all of us." For the first time, Daryl faltered. He spat on the ground, muttered a curse, and stormed back into his truck, tires screeching as he sped off into the rain. Reaper wiped the rain from his face, turning toward Tank's direction. "Let's get her somewhere safe." Behind him, thunder cracked, a warning that this was far from over. Daryl wouldn't give up easily, and the iron vultures knew it. By dawn, the rain had stopped. The bikers' safe house sat at the edge of a wooded hill, half workshop, half clubhouse. A long line of bikes gleamed under the sunrise. Inside, the place smelled faintly of oil, leather, and strong coffee. Tasha stepped in hesitantly, limping slightly but relieved. "This is where you all live?" she asked softly. Reaper nodded. "We call it the Nest. It's not fancy, but no one bothers us out here." Diesel set her bag down beside the couch. "We've got food, first aid, and a doc who won't ask questions. You rest here tonight." Tasha smiled weakly. "Thank you, for everything." Tank shrugged. "Ain't charity, sweetheart. We just don't like bullies." Reaper poured coffee into 2 mugs and handed her one. "You should call in sick today. That limp needs time to heal." She took the cup, fingers trembling slightly. He's going to come looking for me. Daryl always does. Reaper leaned back in his chair, eyes calm but sharp. Let him. He won't find this place unless he's got wings. They let her rest while they gathered around the long oak table, murmuring quietly. Diesel unfolded a small map of the area. His truck's registered under Daryl Jenkins, owns a body shop off Route 22. Word is he's done side work for the sheriff's department. Ghost nodded grimly. That's how he got away with it. Small town connections. Reaper exhaled. We'll deal with him the right way, clean and quiet. Tank cracked his knuckles. Or loud if needed. Meanwhile, Tasha woke from a restless nap. Her ankle throbbed, but the pain was bearable. When she stepped into the kitchen, she found Ghost tuning his bike near the back door. You guys really risk your necks for a stranger? She asked quietly. Ghost didn't look up. You remind Reaper of someone. Who? His sister. She was with a man like that once. He paused. Didn't make it out. The words hung heavy in the air. Tasha's eyes softened. I'm sorry. Ghost gave a short nod, jaw tight. That's why he won't let it happen again. Outside, Reaper was on the phone, his deep voice low but serious. Yeah, I need a favor. Run the name Daryl Jenkins. I want everything, records, priors, any complaints. Yeah, I'll owe you. He ended the call and looked toward the window where Tasha stood watching him. She looked small, fragile even, but there was something fierce in her eyes, a quiet strength that had kept her alive this long. Later, they shared breakfast, eggs, toast, and laughter that filled the room like sunlight after a storm. For a moment, Tasha forgot her fear. The bikers treated her not as a victim, but as one of their own. Diesel showed her a few self-defense moves. Tank patched her ankle properly. Ghost fixed the wobbly chair she'd been sitting on. These rough men who once terrified her were now the only ones who made her feel safe. But peace never lasted long. Around noon, Reaper's phone buzzed. He stepped outside to answer, face hardening as he listened. When he came back, the room fell silent. That was our guy, he said. Daryl filed a report this morning, said his girlfriend was kidnapped by bikers. Tasha's face drained of color. What? Cops might come asking questions, Diesel muttered. Reaper nodded. They'll try, but we play it smart. He crouched in front of her, voice steady. Listen, Tasha, you didn't do anything wrong. You don't go back there. You don't talk to him. You stay here till we sort this out. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't want you all getting in trouble because of me. Reaper smiled faintly. Trouble's part of the job, sweetheart. Outside, a hawk circled over the tree line, a warning, a shadow. Far down the road, Daryl Jenkins sat in his truck, binoculars in hand, engine idling. His eyes burned with rage. He'd found them, and he wasn't coming alone. The next morning broke grey and silent. Fog rolled off the woods, blanketing the Iron Vulture's compound in mist. Tasha woke to the faint hum of engines being tuned and boots crunching gravel outside. The men were preparing, not for a ride, but for a fight. Reaper stood by the workshop door, tightening his gloves. We got movement on the road, he said quietly to Diesel. 2 trucks, same plates that followed us last night. Diesel's expression hardened. Daryl brought friends. Good, Reaper muttered. So did we. From the far side of the property, 3 more bikes emerged, reinforcements from another chapter. The low growl of engines filled the valley like thunder before a storm. Inside, Tasha stood nervously by the window, her ankle still bandaged. You should all just let me go, she pleaded. This is my problem. He's not going to stop until... Reaper turned to her, voice sharp but kind. No, he already took too much from you. Now it's our problem. The truck stopped at the edge of the gravel lot. Daryl stepped out, flanked by 3 men, all armed. His smirk twisted into something ugly when he saw Reaper waiting, calm and still. You got a death wish, old man, Daryl shouted. Hand her over, and maybe I'll forget this happened. Reaper walked forward, his boots sinking into the mud. You hurt her. You stalked her. You think nobody sees. Well, we do, Daryl sneered. She's mine. Reaper's tone dropped to steel. She stopped being yours the first time you raised a hand. Daryl lifted his gun, but before he could aim, Ghost's voice rang out from behind the bikes. Now! Engines roared to life. The bikers surrounded the trucks, blocking every escape. Tank and Diesel advanced with the slow, deliberate stride of men who'd fought before. A gunshot cracked through the air, a warning, not a hit. Reaper didn't flinch. He took another step forward. You got two choices, son. You walk away or you don't walk at all. Daryl hesitated, rage burning in his eyes. You think you can scare me? Reaper smiled faintly. Not trying to scare you, just giving you fair warning. The standoff stretched into silence. Then, from the distance, the wail of sirens broke through the fog. Daryl's smirk faltered. Tasha stepped outside, heart pounding. You called the police? She whispered to Reaper. He nodded. Not the locals, state patrol, friends of ours. The truck's drivers panicked. Daryl turned to flee, but two patrol cars skidded into the lot, blocking the exit. Officers jumped out, weapons drawn. Daryl Jenkins! One shouted. Hands where we can see them! Daryl froze. His men dropped their weapons immediately. Reaper folded his arms, watching silently as the officers handcuffed Daryl and led him to the squad car. As they read his rights, Tasha's eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but release. The nightmare that had chained her for years was finally over. She turned to Reaper. I don't know how to thank you. He shook his head. You don't owe us anything. Just live free. Diesel grinned. And maybe bake us one of those diner pies sometime. She laughed through her tears. You got it. Later, as the cops drove away and the engines quieted, the fog began to lift. The sun broke through, golden and clean. Reaper stood at the edge of the lot, watching it rise. Ghost joined him. You think she'll be okay? Reaper nodded slowly. She's stronger than she knows. She'll heal. Behind them, Tasha stood by the bikes, wind brushing through her hair, face turned toward the light. For the first time in years, she felt unafraid. When Reaper approached, she met his gaze and said softly, I thought I was broken. You all showed me I'm not. He smiled, rough and warm. You never were. The iron vultures mounted their bikes, engines growling like thunder rolling away. Tasha watched them ride off down the open highway, sunlight glinting off their chrome. In that moment she knew, the men who looked like outlaws had become her saviors, and their rumbling departure wasn't just an exit. It was a promise that if darkness ever came for her again, the sound of motorcycles would follow,